have a duo that bridges logic with impact. Joining us live from New Zealand, I mentioned before, project management doesn't have borders. Where it's already late there. Phil Driver. Phil is a world-renowned specialist and author of validating strategies. Along with Merv, a great colleague now for this conference, a Better Business Cases expert who is here on stage with us. They will show us that project success isn't just about finishing tasks. It's about the logic of delivering real-world benefits. Distance is no barrier when it comes to delivering value. Let's see how PRUB logic can reshape your strategy. Phil, hi. You can't see me. I should stand here. Can you see me now?
I can, and kalimera to you.
Thank you very much. I hope it's not too late for you in New Zealand.
It's only 7 o'clock in the evening, so this is a very good time to talk. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. The virtual stage for you is yours, and with Merv to help you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much that you're here, Phil. That puts my mind at rest. I'm Merv Wyeth, and I belong to PMI UK. I've travelled here today, or yesterday, from the UK. As you heard, unfortunately, Phil's not able to be here, but I'm glad I can bring him to you. I've known Phil about 10 years now, and since I was first introduced to his book called Validating Strategies. And I found the book quite challenging to the way that I thought about program management, quite provocative, and I wanted to know more. So I've Phil's been in the UK a couple of times talking about this topic, and I even chased him down in New Zealand to find out more about PRUB. And I don't know about you, if you've ever had projects that have failed, or you've attempted to implement strategy, then you'll know how challenging that could be. So Phil today is going to give us his take on how you should approach that gap that often exists between strategy and delivery. I might have got away with that word, but Phil will explain why that is perhaps a word not in his own lexicon. So before we get going, Phil will use Mentimeter. Many of you will have used it before, but please do interact. We've got 1 or 2 questions in there for you. And also we'll come to a Q&A afterwards. We've left time, and you can pop your questions into there as well. So I know you're going to enjoy this. I'll hand on to Phil then to walk us through PRUB logic. Thank you.
Kalimera. So there's the Mentimeter link. Okay, this is who I am. I'm Phil Driver. I have a PhD in solar energy. I've worked in agricultural and mechanical engineering, and more recently I've been a facilitator of large-scale public sector strategies with many, many projects. I developed the open strategy system based on PRUB logic that I'm going to talk about today, and I'm an international strategy lecturer and author. So I'll just show you where I live. So this is our home. We live on half a hectare, and we're creating a food forest based on permaculture. And if you don't know what permaculture is, it means permanent agriculture. It means where you grow stuff and then you leave it alone and you become a hunter-gatherer. So why am I mentioning that? Well, permaculture informs a lot of my strategy and project management thinking. So in permaculture, you can run wonderful projects to plant some plants. So the result is you've got some nice plants in the ground. But if you don't watch what's going on, then rabbits eat your lettuces. So the project management solution is to erect some fencing. And you'll see I've used this word use. Rabbits are using my property. There's another use. Beans are growing in my property. So the project management solution is plant them in the right place. And as we go through this presentation, you're going to understand why I use this word use. It's absolutely crucial when it comes to strategies. So let's get into what is PRUB logic. What's the strategy framework and vocabulary? So first we need to decide what is a strategy. We're going to look at PRUB logic. And importantly, we're going to understand who creates benefits and what motivates actions to create benefits. And then we'll summarize some of that. So that's what we're going through today. So I've got a question for you first, and if you click on the side here on the Mentimeter, you can start entering your answer. In your projects, how many stakeholders do you typically deal with? Oh, there we go. So some people are dealing with 11 to 100. So more answers coming in. It looks like most people are dealing with these sorts of numbers. Oh, there's a few of you who've got projects with smaller numbers of people. Hey, look, that's really great information. That helps me because it's clear that many of you are dealing with more than just one or two other people. You're dealing with maybe 5 or 10 or 100 or 100 up to 1,000, maybe over 1,000 people you're dealing with. So you all need to speak the same language. Thank you for your answers. In today's focus, I'm going to be looking particularly at large strategies, multi-stakeholder strategies like climate change and regional scale water management. These strategies have thousands of stakeholders and hundreds of projects. So we need thousands of end users to change their behavior as part of our strategies guided by our projects. Just have a read of this. This is from 2007 from McKinsey in in the USA. This quote is still on their webpage because it is still valid. If you just have a read of that. Does this last few words mean something to you? There is a mystical hope that something good will come out of the strategy process. And that's how it is in so many situations. A lot of strategies are not actually strategies. They're not things that project managers can implement. We need to do much better with our strategic planning. 74% of strategy failures are due to poor information or communication. And that was a conclusion from the Association of Project Managers in the UK, and I can provide you the background information on that. But information and communication are real problems in strategies. So what is the meaning of strategy? Now, these definitions came from Professor Freek Vermeulen at London Business School. He says a strategy is an action plan and a rationale. Rationale is the reasons for implementing the strategy. So in simple language, a strategy is what you're going to do and why you're going to do those particular things. I find this a really useful and simple meaning of strategy. So why do we need PRUB logic? Well, see all those words? They're sort of strategy words. All those words came out of a single New Zealand government strategy document. How many people do you think understand all those words? And when I run webinars for PMI or APM, I ask members, do goals contribute to objectives? Or do objectives contribute to goals? Or are goals and objectives the same thing? And the audience typically splits a third, a third, a third. A third thinks goals and objectives are the same. A third think goals contribute to objectives, and a third think objectives contribute to goals. And that's a major problem. These words are very, very abstract. They're not grounded in reality. So how does all that work if we're trying to work with hundreds of stakeholders? And the answer is it absolutely doesn't. We cannot use all of those words if we're dealing with hundreds of stakeholders. Humans have cognitive limits. We can only understand a certain amount of information. And if we have a really good diagram, my law, driver's law, says most people can comprehend 15 plus or minus 5 concepts in a well-designed diagram. So people can look at that and they can work it out. Most people look at a diagram like that and they just turn away. It means nothing to them. It is far too complicated. We've got to make things simpler if we're dealing with a lot of people. So our main open strategies principle is this. We want strategies that have the smallest amount of strategic information, that has the highest value to the most people. And I'll put these two words down here, unequivocally and meticulously. Unequivocally means the words we use must have only one meaning. Meticulously, they must be precise. And that leads to PRUB logic, as I'll show you in a minute. So we use the term validating strategies. A strategy needs to be validated. Anyone can write a document and call it a strategy. That doesn't mean it is a strategy, it's just a document. Strategies are not real strategies unless they've been validated. So what does a validated strategy look like? How do we know that a strategy is really going to work? This is what validated strategies are. They must be logical. They must make sense. Secondly, everybody has to be able to understand it. Thirdly, we've got to be able to implement it. Project managers have to be able to look at this strategy and say, that's logical, I understand it, and I know what I have to do, and it will be worth it. So these are the 4 words we apply to strategies. But what does logical mean for a strategy? And for us, logical means it must represent physical reality. It mustn't be abstract words like outcomes and objectives and goals. It's got to use language that represent physical reality. But what is physical reality for strategies? And here's a question for me. I'm not going to wait for your answer, but can you describe how the world works in less than 10 words? I'll let you think about that for a few seconds before I give you our answer. So I've worked with hundreds of project managers and thousands of stakeholders. And this is the answer that we've collectively come up with. Physical reality is this. We make stuff, we use stuff, and we get benefits. It's that simple. That's what we do. Project managers make stuff, people use it, and they get a benefit from using it. That's it. But let's put that in slightly more rigorous language. Projects create results that are used to create benefits. So projects creating results, that's making stuff, using stuff, getting benefits. That's PRUB logic. So PRUB logic represents the physical reality of make stuff, use stuff, get benefits. These are physical things. A project is a physical thing. It's not an objective or goal. It's a physical thing. You know what it is. You know what a result is. You can see people using things and getting benefits. These are physical realities. So here we go. Projects create results. That's what you do. And uses create benefits. I think that's fairly straightforward. But what happens in here? Do results create uses? Do results deliver uses? Do results realize uses? None of those. Results enable and catalyze uses. So we might have a project to build a gymnasium. The result is we've got a gymnasium, and that enables people to use the gymnasium to get fit. That's enabling. But if we want more people to use the gymnasium, maybe we also add a cafe and a childcare centre, and that catalyses more people to use the gymnasium. So results enable and catalyze uses. They don't create uses, they don't deliver uses, they don't realize uses, they enable and catalyze. But it goes more than that. Benefits motivate users. If somebody's in the gymnasium doing a lot of exercise, they want the benefit of being fit and healthy. And it's that benefit that motivates them to do the uses. The uses prescribe the results. So if we really understand what users want to be doing, that tells us what results we need to enable and catalyze those users. And those results in turn motivate and prescribe the projects. So that's PRUB logic, P-R-U-B. And the key thing is this gap in here. Results do not create uses. Results do not deliver uses or realize uses or manage uses. They enable uses. Let's look at a couple of simple examples. Here's a set of projects where, as a company, we manufacture, distribute, and market our company's products. The result, the products are in the market. The uses, people buy and use our products. The benefits are we've got happy customers because they've used our products to achieve what they wanted to achieve, and we're profitable. That's fairly straightforward. Here's another one. Build a sheltered cycleway from a housing estate to a school. The result is a cycleway. The uses, children ride on it. The benefit is they're safe. And the crucial question here is who creates the benefits? Do the projects create the benefits? Do the results create the benefits? Or do the uses create the benefits? Only uses create benefits, and that can be quite inconvenient if for a long time we've believed that as project managers it's our job to realize benefits. We can't. Only uses create benefits. Our results enable the uses, and those uses will create the benefits that in turn motivate the uses. So can you realize benefits? Just a slight aside here. In an ideal world, projects create results that are used to create benefits, but very often projects create results that never get used. And a partner in Pricewaterhouse in London told me that government projects, 40% of them, that's 40%, produce results that never get used. We call them abandoned orphan results. But some projects produce results that are adopted by another project to produce a result that is used to create a benefit, and we call these adopted orphan results. This slide is very detailed, so I'm going to talk you through it quite carefully, and we're going to start on the right-hand side here. In PRUB logic, we break strategy into 3 stages. The first one, strategic scanning. The second one, strategic planning. And the third one, strategic doing. So strategic scanning is using many techniques to assess your strategic environment and distill potential options for action. And in here, these are all the strategy scanning actions. Working out objectives, doing SWOT analysis, using Agile, looking at balanced scorecards, working out your KPIs. That is not strategic planning. That is just strategic scanning. It's just collecting information and analyzing it. Good stuff, it's got to be done. Now comes the hard bit, and that's strategic planning. Strategic planning, we take all of everything we've done up here and we focus it into a strategy that is logical, understandable, doable, and worth it. So that's a validated strategy. And the focus has to be on the benefits that we want our strategy to create. So strategy planning takes all of this information and focuses it down on what are the benefits we're trying to achieve. And when we really understand the benefits, we can work back and say, therefore we need these uses, therefore we need these results, therefore we need these projects. So planning goes this way. The final step is strategy doing or implementing, and that's when we run projects to produce results, to get uses, to create benefits. This is the strategy doing, and this is where project managers do a lot of their work. But what I will be arguing that as project managers, we need to understand uses and benefits better and better so that we create the right results that fully enable the uses. I'm going to run through an example. In 2011, we had a huge earthquake in Christchurch, which was the city I was living in. And this is what the middle of the city looks like. And that's a road we're looking at there. We had no power. We had no water. We had no one coming to help most of us. And we're talking about a city of 500,000 people. Most shops were closed and many roads were impassable. That's a photo of a road. But really importantly, there was no wastewater system, so we had no toilets in 30,000 homes. You can dig a hole in the garden once or twice, but we needed toilets urgently. So it was fairly obvious to the project managers that what we needed was one of these in every one of those houses, their chemical toilets. And the project managers got together and got in touch with China and got 30,000 chemical toilets to New Zealand within about 3 or 4 days. So here was their PRUB logic. Project, deliver the toilets, results, we've got them. The use, family uses them, and we've got high levels of hygiene. That's pretty good, isn't it? But is it enough? Is delivering the toilets sufficient? Well, I don't know if you've ever used one of these toilets, but in about 2 or 3 days, they're full. So we have to be able to use them and empty them. But where are we going to empty them? We can't empty them down the toilets because the toilets don't work. So the project managers came along and said, we need another project. We need to install big tanks on street corners. So the result is we've got these tanks and we could empty our toilets into those tanks. But is that enough? Well, the problem is these tanks filled up as well. So we had to have another project to empty those tanks. So now we could use the toilets and empty them into clean tanks. But is that enough? Well, no, because we needed to clean and sanitize our toilets as well. But there were no shops open. We couldn't get chemicals. So project managers came to the rescue again and said we need to deliver cleaning chemicals to all the homes. So now everybody's got the chemicals and we could clean our toilets. That was great. Just a quick question, who are the main stakeholders here? Is it the dozen companies who are delivering the chemicals? Or is it the 100,000 people using the toilets? We really need to understand how those users are using the toilets. And is that sufficient? Well, no, because elderly and frail people couldn't lift up those toilets to go and empty them. They weigh 20 kilograms when they're full. So we needed another project. Train and employ reliable people to clean, empty the toilets, return them to the elderly people so people could use them. And this question is really important. What key information prescribes this strategy? The benefit was straightforward. We needed to have high levels of hygiene, but it didn't tell us how to do it. The most valuable information was uses. As we understood each use, it told us what results we need and therefore what projects we needed. And then we discovered we needed another use, so we needed more projects and results. And then we discovered another use, and we needed more projects and results. So uses, like rabbits eating my lettuces, are absolutely crucial to understanding strategies. So here's a question for you that you can start filling in using Mentimeter again. What actions create benefits? Do projects create benefits or results? Or do uses create benefits? What are your answers? Oh, thank you very, very much. That really encourages me that uses create benefits. Thank you very much. Okay, next slide. Do project managers deliver or realize benefits? Yes or no? Yeah, this is really interesting, this slide, because for years, we've been told that project managers have to realize benefits. But PRUB logic says that only uses create benefits. So I still would argue that only users create benefits and project managers cannot deliver or realize benefits. So this is something for you to discuss over your cup of tea or coffee. I encourage you to discuss it with Merv Wyeth, who's in the room with you. When you're dealing with clients, we really need to understand the users from the user's perspective. So here's some parents making a pretty little mobile to entertain the child. And it looks wonderful to them as project managers, but this is what the baby sees. So we really need to understand users as seen by the user, not as seen by the project manager. Okay. I'm going to talk about benefits. There's two types of benefits that arise when we run a PRUB strategy. There's global benefits. So we run projects that produce results that create uses, where the users create a benefit to the society. So a use might be using less fossil fuel, and that creates a benefit to less global heating. That's a global benefit. Personal benefits are when we undertake a use. So a use might be using a gymnasium, and we get the personal benefit of being healthier. But these uses won't happen unless the user feels they're getting worthwhile benefits. So uses will only happen if the user gets net personal worth. Benefits will not be created unless users are motivated to happen. So results can only enable users. They can't deliver them, they can't manage them, they can't realize them. They can enable users, and the users must be motivated by the worth of the benefit to do the uses which create the benefits. So global benefits, if we're trying to improve climate change, they're 100% dependent on users, that's people like ourselves, creating sufficiently motivating worthwhile benefits. We won't undertake the uses, we won't use your results unless we get a benefit from it. So a very quick question, can project managers manage global and personal benefits, or deliver benefits, or influence benefits, or facilitate benefits? Maybe two of those? What do you think?
Isn't quite right. I don't know if you can see the timer, but we've got another 20 minutes up to, so we don't have to rush. But I'll hand back to you as the results are coming in.
Thank you, Merv. And I'd just like to talk to this slide a little bit. If we're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of stakeholders, generally we can only facilitate the benefits. But I see that some of you are saying you can manage benefits. If you're doing project management within a company and you're doing the work for the company, then probably you can actually manage the staff to do the uses to create the benefits. So I think manage can work when you're dealing with small projects where whoever is purchasing your project is also the player who's using your results. But if we're trying to do climate change where the government might be asking us to facilitate a strategy, we can only facilitate the thousands of people out there to do the right uses to create the benefits. So large-scale strategies, we tend to operate down at this end. So I'm going to talk you through benefits facilitation. So in PRUB logic, we start over here. If we're wanting to work with a client, the first thing we say to ask the client is, what are the global benefits you're looking for? There might be benefits within a company, there might be benefits within a community, or even global. And we want to say, why are you spending this money doing projects? What are you trying to achieve here? And when we understand that, we can work out, well, what are the uses that will create those benefits? And we often have quite a lot of debate about this because this is often quite difficult to understand if we're working on large-scale projects. But if we don't do it, we're going to run the wrong projects. The third step, we know what uses will create the global benefits, but we have to understand, will they also create personal benefits? Because this is where the motivation is. It's these benefits that motivate these users to create the global benefits. If you haven't got this motivation, you won't get these benefits. And sometimes in step 4, we have to add additional uses to create additional personal motivating benefits. When we've got to this stage, we know why we're doing our strategy. We know what we're trying to achieve and how the users are going to achieve it. So step 5 is usually quite straightforward. That's what you people are good at. You say, well, if that's what you want to do, I'll create this result and I'll need this project and I'll create this result and this result and this result. And these are the projects we need. So this is where the profession is absolutely fantastic at doing this. But very often, you're not being given this information to guide the projects and results. The 6th step is to validate that. It all looks logical, but is it really true? Is every one of these arrows true? Do you have evidence that this result really will cause this use, and will that use really cause that benefit and that benefit? So that's the validation stage of your PRUB strategy. Then you do what you're good at. You run projects to produce results, but now you know why you're doing it. And then finally, we check, did your results or were your results actually used to create these actual benefits? That's when where you prove that your PRUB strategy has worked. So what we're doing with PRUB strategy is we're trying to collect this information about uses and benefits to help guide you project managers, to help motivate you so you know why you're doing this. You're doing it to enable these uses to create these benefits. This profession, the project management profession, it really is a profession. The strategy profession, I would have to say, is barely a profession at all, and yet you have to work with the strategy profession. Okay, I'm going to make this very bold statement, and you might like to discuss this over coffee as well. I'm saying that results have no worth, they have no value. It costs money and resources to achieve results, I think you would accept that. But if the results aren't used or won't be used, they are just a cost. So if you imagine if your result was a beautiful swimming pool and no one is using it, what's it worth? It's just sitting there. It's an expensive asset that has to be maintained. It has no value on its own. It's just a cost. Even if it's used to create benefit, the results are still just a cost. They cost you to create the result. Certainly the result enabled uses and benefits, but the results here just enabled the uses. It's the use that created worthwhile benefits. Only benefits have worth. Results have no worth. That's pretty shocking, isn't it? The thing is, when we look at something like a swimming pool, we often imagine how it's going to be used. We imagine all the users and all the benefits we're going to get. And the value of those benefits we attribute to the result. But that value, that worth, resides in the benefits, not in the results. Have a think about that. So just in summary, PRUB logic looks at the reality of the world, which is to make stuff, use stuff, and get benefits. And we translate that into PRUB logic. Projects create results that enable users to create benefits, which motivate users. So only uses create benefits. So benefits won't arise unless the uses happen. So we have to understand the uses. We have to create the right results that will be used to create the benefits. So uses must be enabled by the results. That's all the results can do. They can only enable a use, and they must be motivated by worthwhile benefits. And different real users are enabled and motivated differently. So who exactly are your users if you're doing a big strategy on water management? And I'm saying here, they're probably not like you. So Everett Rogers has done some work on different categories of people, and he refers to innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. And given that you're in this conference, most of you are probably innovators and early adopters. And you make up about 10 or 12% of the global population. And that's why I'm saying most of the people that need to implement your strategy are probably early majority, late majority laggards. They're probably not like you, so they're going to be motivated differently from how you're motivated. So when you're running a project, what results are you creating and how will they enable other people's uses? And what benefits will people get from those uses that will motivate them? And when you answer those questions, you can start integrating strategies with projects. Now today I've just touched on a few aspects of PRUB logic, but PRUB logic does a lot more than what I've shown you today. It's very useful for assessing accountability, efficiency, effectiveness, risk management, issues around evidence. What does success mean? How do you prioritize strategies, different strategic environments, and so on? The difference between doing versus wanting, joined up budgets versus pooled budgets. So PRUB addresses all of those. And it addresses it through my 3 books as validating strategies from back in 2012, and that's a good starting point. And this book, I hope, will come out in the next month or so, integrating strategies with projects. That's expanding on what I've done today, and it covers about 50 different aspects of PRUB logic. So we've got a session here on questions and answers. So I'm happy to answer these questions. So here's the first one. I can see that PRUB logic would work for large-scale strategies with many stakeholders. Does it work for single projects with a single customer? Yes, absolutely it does. Although we created PRUB logic so that it would be understood by hundreds and hundreds of people, it also turns out that it's readily understood by project managers. We can use exactly the same logic for single projects. And if you're dealing with a single project with a single customer, your user may be the person that's paying you to run the project. So you can have a very, very good conversation to understand the PRUB sequence. So that's, yes, absolutely it works with a single customer. So I'll enter that to mark it as answered. Thank you for that question. This brings us to the question of, are results themselves ever benefits? And sometimes people refer to internal benefits, so that you run a project, you produce a result, like a new swimming pool, and the contractor gets paid for creating that swimming pool. So the contractor's result is he has been paid, and the contractor sees that as a personal benefit to him. But for the overall strategy, that's what we call a milestone benefit, not an end point benefit. So yes, some results will be seen as benefits with a small b right at the beginning. But in PRUB logic, the only benefits that we really recognize are the ones with a capital B, benefits, and that's the end benefits. Thank you for that question. Well, that is a very challenging question. And if I look at something like climate change, most people don't want to change. Most people don't want to give up their cars. They don't want to stop flying to Greece for a holiday. So getting large numbers of people to accept the change is extremely difficult. And that's why I come back to the distinction between global benefits and personal benefits. So there's a global benefit if we stop using fossil fuels, but that doesn't motivate people. So what is the personal benefit if you use less fossil fuel? Well, right now, we've got an electric car, and it doesn't bother us that oil cannot get through the Straits of Hormuz. So we get a personal benefit by driving an electric car. And I think that personal benefit is going to get bigger and bigger as the price of oil goes up. So the key insight here is that if you want people to change, you need to convince them that they will get a personal benefit from undertaking the use or undertaking the change behavior that we need them to change. If they don't get a personal benefit, they won't do it unless they are forced to do it. I hope that addresses your question. A really good question, very challenging. Oh, that's a good one. No, it doesn't always work. And yes, some people feel very uncomfortable. I was running a strategy workshop for a local council in New Zealand, and it was about developing a swimming strategy, and they were building a brand new swimming pool in the main centre. But there were 5 other swimming pools in some of the small towns around the area. And by going through PRUB logic, people started asking, are we going to still be able to use those small swimming pools? And the mayor, who was chairing the meeting, shut the meeting down. He did not want that conversation because those small swimming pools were going to be shut down and he didn't want to tell anybody. So PRUB logic is, I would say, it is brutally transparent. And very often the people in power, the people who make the decisions, the people who own the money, do not want a transparent PRUB logic process. They want a strategy that supports their ideology. So I'm warning you, PRUB logic is very, very powerful, and some people don't like it. So thank you for that question. This gets back to my earlier slide about having a notebook. As a white male engineer, I can imagine all the things that people ought to do and what benefits they ought to get. But I don't know the answers. The only way to know what will motivate people is to go and ask them. So I'll give you an example in New Zealand when we were doing a water management strategy. And a lot of people wanted water for irrigation or for industrial purposes or for leaving the water in the rivers. And we asked some of the Maori people, so the Maori are the indigenous people in New Zealand. And for Maori people, they consider the water that comes from the mountains, the alpine water, is like blood flowing in our body. And water in the lowland rivers is like waste leaving our body. And so they have a very, very important principle. Do not mix alpine water with lowland water. And the only way we could understand how that was important to these people was to ask them. And that's difficult to do. If you're trying to work with hundreds or thousands of stakeholders, you have to ask a lot of questions. And people give answers and you're inclined to shake your head and think that can't be true. But we need to listen to people and really understand why certain benefits are important to them. And very often they are not economic benefits. As I say in New Zealand, cultural benefits, benefits that are important to Maori, often are more important than economic or environmental benefits. So yes, it is the most important part, and we have to ask the questions of the people who are going to be affected. Thank you for that question. I guess you only need to know the uses, but if you also knew the benefits, then I think that might inspire you a bit more when you're running your project, because if you just know your result's going to be used, is that very inspiring or motivating for you? But if you know people are going to use what you create and they're going to get a benefit that excites them, that motivates them, I think that motivates us as project managers as well. So you don't need to know the benefits, but I think it is inspiring if you do know the benefits. So I think it's worth asking. Ask the user, how are you going to use my result? And why is that important to you? And honestly, you can have some wonderful conversations with users who get very animated when you actually ask them, what are you trying to do? What are your uses? What are your benefits? Because we very seldom ask them that. We just tell them we're going to give you a swimming pool. So asking them really generates some lovely conversations. Yeah, so this is this similar question. We have to ask people about global and personal benefits and how they translate to uses.
Sorry, Phil, can you hear me?
Yes.
We're going to have to park the questions there. We are out of time, but there's been some fantastic questions that have come in. Here Phil's displaying his QR code. Please do follow that through, connect with him on LinkedIn, ask him challenging and provocative questions. I know some of you probably need to be convinced of this, but Phil is always there for a lively discussion. And I mentioned I first met Phil and learned about this some 10 years ago, still learning about that, and I do hope that his next book will have such a profound effect on others. So thank you ever so much, Phil. I think we're now preparing for our next session.
Well,
Thank
sorry,
you.
Merv,
Yeah.
just before
Yes,
you
go
go,
on.
Merv, I really want to thank Merv. I mean, Merv has had a substantial contribution to my presentation. He's been a wonderful sounding board. He challenges my presentations. He brings a lot of skills to the table. So thank you, Merv. Do ask Merv questions during your break. And I ask you to, contact me if you agree with me, but also if you disagree with me, please email me and tell me why you disagree. I look forward to hearing from you. So thank you for listening. Kei
Thank
rete.
you, Phil.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you very much. I suppose we could have questions for an hour, but unfortunately we have to meet to move on. Thank you again for connecting with us, for sharing these very interesting insights from your work. And also thank Merv for making it possible.
Thank you.
Have a great night.